everyone, Miss Carrie here from Miss Carrie's Creations, and today we're going to be using some stamps from the Creativity in Motion collection to make this beautiful butterfly layout. So we're just going to go ahead and get started with this layout. Here I have some white daisy cardstock. I have the opaque matte texture paste, intense black re-inker, the spatula, and a stencil I created on my Cricut machine. This re-inker that I am using is a deep black, and normally you use the re-inkers to re-ink our intense black ink pad, which is formulated to work with alcohol markers and watercolors. I really wanted a deep black texture paste, so I chose to use the intense black instead of our other black re-inkers. Right now I am just mixing up that black ink with the texture paste here on my all-purpose mat. The photo I'm going to be using today is of three cousins. How cute are these girls? And I thought the hearts in this stencil were the perfect complement to that photo. I'm going to place this stencil down onto the white daisy cardstock and carefully scrape the texture paste along the stencil. Now I'm not going to be filling in the whole stencil. I actually want this to be more of an abstract type background. So I'm just dragging it in various places on the stencil, and then I'm going to pick up the stencil and line it up with some hearts down below and add some more texture paste. The heart overlay I used to create this stencil comes from our Cricut art booking collection. So if you decide you want to recreate this page, that is where you will find the design that I used for the background. Here I'm just checking to make sure I have enough texture paste in the background. I'm going to add a little bit more over here on the side, and then I am going to go ahead and get rid of the rest of this texture paste. While that texture paste dries, I'm going to be stamping the butterflies for the layout using the Pixie pigment ink. I plan on heat embossing these butterflies, so I'm going to be using pigment ink along with some clear embossing powder. The Butterfly Kisses stamp set is part of our Creativity in Motion line. These are lenticular stamps that are designed to work with this lined acetate. When you move the acetate across the stamps, the image appears to be moving. Now, unfortunately, I have a condition with my eyes where I cannot see things like this. So when this line of products came out, I honestly thought I would never use it. But here's what happened. Close to My Heart sent me this entire line of products and asked me to come up with some projects to show you how to use them. I decided to use them as is because I think the lines in those abstract butterflies are just beautiful and perfect for this layout. Since this is a brand new stamp, I am going to season it a little bit here on the back of my Versamat. Now at first I planned on only doing this big butterfly in pink, but I think I've decided that I want to do a second butterfly, and I'm going to grab some black pigment ink and do two shapes of butterflies in two different colors. Pigment inks are much different than our dye inks. The colors actually sit right on the surface and it doesn't dry very quickly. That's why I like to use it with heat embossing powder. I'm going to start by prepping that white daisy cardstock with my anti-static bag, and then I'm going to stamp this butterfly in the pink pigment ink onto the cardstock. Now, because this is pigment, I have a little bit of leeway. It doesn't dry right away, so I can stamp all four of those butterflies, then sprinkle it with the clear embossing powder and heat set it with my heat tool so that I have a raised butterfly image. I'm going to repeat the same process with the black butterflies. I'm stamping these in black pigment ink onto the white daisy cardstock. I'm going to sprinkle them with clear embossing powder and then heat set them. Now all I have to do is cut out each one of these butterfly images and they're ready to be added to the layout. As you can see, I did choose to cut out each one of those little antennae, but you could skip that part if you wanted to. I'm going to start out by trimming down my photo using this little mini guillotine trimmer. This is one of my favorite trimmers for photos. And then I'm going to mat the photo in white daisy cardstock. I like adding white trimmer on my photos because I think it draws your eyes to that focal point on the page. I decided after adding the white matting that I also wanted a black matting to help it pop up off the page. I placed the photo down on a piece of intense black cardstock and I've only trimmed down 3 of the sides. I'm going to tear the base of this mat. Our cardstock is white core, so in order for that white core not to show, I have to tear the paper away from me. And this gives me a nice torn edge without any of that white core showing. I've decided to use some of the papers from that 6x6 paper stack. This is another product that is being featured in our Creativity in Motion bundle. I just loved all of the bright colors and patterns. So here I am just rummaging through all of those patterns, trying to pick a couple of them that will go along with the photo. After taking a few minutes to decide on which 6x6 papers to use, I decided on the floral pattern for the background and this polka dot to match the polka dot leggings and polka dot shirt. I've also grabbed a couple of other pink designs that are going to go vertically behind the photo. Now I'm going to grab those butterflies that I cut out earlier and I'm going to lay them across the page to see if I like the look of these layered papers I chose. If you choose to make a layout like this one, you want to make sure that your butterflies look like they are fluttering across the page. So you're going to want to layer some of them behind others. You're going to want to turn them a little bit. You're going to want to give the vision or the illusion of movement on your scrapbook page. The last element I plan on adding is this piece of that striped acetate. There are little bits and pieces that were left over from my other projects and I hated to waste them. I liked the look of the black and white stripe, so I've decided to place it somewhere on this page so it doesn't go to waste. Off camera, I attempted to stamp a title in raspberry ink and it did not work out very well. So I've grabbed my label maker here and I have created the word on my label maker in black and white. I'm going to back this label in white daisy cardstock because I want it to pop up off the page. So I'm just going to trim it down and then place it here to cover up my mistake. I've grabbed my sponging tool and the intense black ink and I am inking all of the edges of those pattern papers I cut earlier. I am so excited to tell you that Close to My Heart will be selling this sponging tool starting September 1st, so now you can get a hold of it from my website. I'm going to start adhering everything down onto this page. This larger piece of floral paper only has adhesive on 2 of the sides. It's going to be a pocket to hold a journaling card later. So I did not completely stick it down. The photo is being popped up on some foam tape, and as you can see, I did add a little bit of zigzag stitching along the bottom there. To create these tag shapes, I use these tag thin cuts and I cut the top and the bottom of this pink pattern paper. I did the same thing with the darker pink pattern paper, and you can see here over on the side I'm cutting that tag in half so that I can have a top piece above the photo and the bottom piece below. Again, I'm going to ink all of the edges with the intense black ink before I tuck them behind the photo. Now I do want to be careful that I don't adhere them down over on the right side because that is, like I said, going to be a little pocket for my journaling card and I don't want to seal that shut. To adhere these tags into place, I put adhesive on the front of the tag so that it stuck to that black cardstock. Now I still have a pocket behind the tag so that I can put my little journaling card in. I'm grabbing my ruler here to make sure that the angle of the tag at the top is the same as the angle of the bottom portion of the tag at the bottom so that it looks like this is one big, long, large tag. I'm going to loop some black and white checked ribbon through the top of each one of these tags. This ribbon has been left over from my Story by Stacy album that I created for my Disney vacation, and I've decided to use it here on this page. Instead of creating a knot at the top of the tag and adding extra bulk to the page, I'm just going to tie a knot of white twine around the top of the tag and then fray that twine after I've trimmed it. Now that the tags are in place and I have the ribbon at the top, I'm going to continue assembling this layout. I'm going to place this polka dot paper with the chevron cut over here on the right. Then I'll layer the acetate below it to help ground the photo. And once again, I'll place these butterflies across the layout to help me determine the placement of my title. I'm going to be using white foam letter stickers for the title. Now these can be shaded into any color that you like, but I'm going to leave them white today. To make sure that my title goes down perfectly aligned and straight on my page, I'm going to be using a piece of wax paper to help lay them out. Here I'm just cutting down the piece of wax paper and then I'm going to use some Post-it tape to hold it in place on my Versamat. Now I'm going to pull off the stickers that I need and place them down temporarily onto the wax paper using the grid lines on the Versamat to help with their alignment. Once I have all of those letters aligned and the spacing is how I want it, I'm going to go ahead and place it down onto the page. So here I'm using what we know as the hinge method in the Cricut vinyl world. I'm just going to fold back that piece of wax paper, then place the top portion of my letters down on the layout, remove the bottom portion of the wax paper, and then put those letters in place. Now they're perfectly aligned onto the page, and I can continue creating my layout. After adhering all of the butterflies down using foam tape, I decided it was time to work on that journaling card that's going to go into the pocket. I've already cut a piece of white daisy cardstock down, and I've used that border tab die that I was holding to cut the little tab at the top. This is going to slide here right behind the photo. Now I've decided I don't want that tab to be pure white, so I've cut a second piece using black cardstock, and I'm going to trim off just the tab portion from the top of this piece of cardstock. Before you adhere this tab onto the top, you want to make sure that it's nice and aligned. That's why I made it a little bit bigger than the white cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess and then tuck this behind the photo. Now you can see this gives a nice black accent behind those bright pink tags. This stamp set is also a part of our Creativity in Motion collection. It's designed to instruct those who receive your animated cards how to pull or where to pull the tabs. I thought the word fancy was a great way to describe these three girls in the photo, so I've decided to heat emboss that word on the top of the tab using some white embossing powder. Now it's time to dig through my stash and start embellishing this layout. My goal this year has been to start using items that I have. So I'm going to go through all of my stickers and die cuts and just start adding elements to the layout. A lot of the elements like the little X's and the flowers are super tiny, but they just add little pops of color through the page. You can see here I'm just kind of fussing with a few of them, trying to decide exactly where I want them to go. As I continue adding elements, I'm trying to make sure that I'm forming visual triangles between the flowers and the tags and the butterflies. I want to keep the pinks and the blacks all in balance as I add elements to the page. To be honest, creating scrapbook pages like this is new to me. I did take a 15-year break from scrapbooking, and I will tell you that 15 years ago, scrapbook pages like this were few and far between. This past year, I've been teaching myself all kinds of new techniques and fun ways to add texture and other elements onto the page, but you're going to see me question my placement of all these fun little icons. Now, I'm sure all of you do the same thing, but as I'm creating, my brain is trying to accept the fact that I'm adding more than just one or two stickers to my layout. The last little element I decided to add was that giggle sentiment. And if any of you know what girls are like when you get them all together, they giggle. And that's exactly what these three cousins do when they are together. After taking a step back, I decided I wanted to add a little bit of splatter to the page. So I'm grabbing this splatter stamp and my intense black ink, and I'm going to be adding some randomly stamped images onto the page. Some of them are in first generation and others are second generation. I did have to move a few of the elements out of the way to add the splatters, and now that I take a look at it through the video, I almost wish I hadn't added as many, but live and learn. Next time I add splatter, I'll know that less is more. And now the butterfly layout is complete. I love how it turned out. Like we always do when we create, I did learn a few new things about less is more with splatter and how to add some layered elements onto my page. Now remember, these are lenticular stamps. They are designed to make animated cards and scrapbook pages, but aren't they just gorgeous as is on this layout? I love the way the heat embossing just makes them pop up off the page. I also use those pull tabs from the Creativity in Motion collection to create a hidden journaling card. I just love how fancy this looks on the page. I want to thank you for joining me today as we created this floating butterfly layout using quite a few elements from that Creativity in Motion bundle, which is available at a discount on my website during the month of September. I hope that you're inspired to try something new and learned how to use these lenticular stamps in a whole new way. This is the second creation I have made with the Creativity in Motion bundle. If you'd like to take a look at the card I made, you can click on that icon above. I will be creating some more Creativity in Motion tutorials, so make sure you click that subscribe button so that you're notified when I add those videos to my channel. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.